But awesome. GM. So I thought today for an agenda, we don't have any special guests outside of the team planned for today, but we have a good smattering of updates. So I thought that the agenda for today, we could just go ahead and bounce around and then, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I lied. We do have a special guest today. We have Alex from the Velodrome team. So we will, Alex, if you want, I'll have you up. I'll bring you up on stage, but we'll hold off on the velodrome discussion for just a little bit, and we'll start with some news and updates from across. So with that, actually, Amanda, maybe I'll start with you in case you do get sleepy and need to drop. What is good
Thank
in market
you.
week?
Yeah, this week, so we just had our AMA channel, like a ZK Sync summer campaign is going very well. I hope everyone has been enjoying the spaces and the post AMA Discord games we've had in here. Tomorrow we have a one-on-one with Pre-PO. It's a DeFi platform on ZK Sync. And I think it's, super innovative. I feel like it's like Poison Finance that we did for the Arbitrum campaign, but a step further or a step before that, where you can long or short shares that are either pre-IPO or pre-IDO. So yeah, that's just like a really interesting protocol on zk Sync Era that we're going to talk to tomorrow. It's at 3 p.m. UTC on Twitter Space. You can find it in the event section, calendar section, on Discord, and of course on Twitter. And there's a giveaway for that as well. We're going to have 5 winners in the audience who can win $50 each of the PPO token. All you have to do is attend. If you want to also leave a question, PVM left a question for today, and the Crypto Maze owner just selected him as a winner for doing that. So that's a really easy way to win some good prizes and learn about a really cool protocol on zk Sync Era. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I'll just drop it in the chat, was, for anyone here, we have been on zk Sync Era now for about a week, and speed matters when we're talking zk Sync Era because airdrop farming. So I just wanted to ask everyone to help us amplify this one Medium article that one of the team members wrote, Christian, and he does a really fantastic breakdown of the different feeds and a great comparison of the different speeds on different bridges. So if you guys can help amplify that, and I'll drop that link in the chat. And that's it from marketing. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Super cool. Just curious, Amanda, of the spaces that we've had so far, what's the giveaway that you were most excited about?
I think the Mute team was really generous. Like they gave 300 USDC.
Nice.
That just seemed like, that seemed like a lot. And Mute is not, how can I say, like Mute is already really established and they're quite a big protocol. So they're not, in need to, let's say, to like get more eyes on their project. So I thought that was like really cool of them. And they had a similar mentality to Risk Labs, of like UMA across brand mentality, which is like a give in this bear market. So I was really impressed by that.
Nice. Super cool. Well, thanks for the updates on that, and yeah, always a good opportunity to get some giveaways on these collaborative spaces. So, right on. Thanks, Amanda. Let's bounce to Dixie next. GM Dixie, how are you? Dix, you might be having some mic issues. I'll steal the ball back while you drop and rejoin. So, false alarm, JK. Chase/Dylan, race to it. Who's up next?
Accurate. Wait, Dylan, I tagged you.
You did tag him. He's unmuted, but I can't hear him either.
Oh.
So Dylan might also.
I feel like this is cheating.
It might be.
So one of the things that we've done in the last week is, and again, I was tagging Dylan because he did a lot of pretty cool work on this, but we've been looking.
2 seconds.
we've been looking at ways to grow our LP capital. So one of the ways that Across is constrained right now is we actually end up utilizing. Oh, there you are. We end up utilizing most of our LP capital pretty frequently. So you especially look at USDC or USDT or DAI. We
remember this
run
is
through
a
that money.
nice problem to have. It means our protocol's getting used a lot.
Yes, which is like, yeah, like you said, a hell of a problem to have. But we've been talking a lot about kind of what things we can do. And so Dylan's been doing some analysis, and maybe I'll let him talk about some of this work he's done on the LP funds.
Yeah. So basically, we kind of looked at it from two different perspectives. One, kind of like internally. So we had a look at like how our LPers were doing, and the actual liquidity pools themselves. What were like the characteristics of the people that like made it up? How sticky was the capital that was in it? Like what kind of qualifications? So like, did they earn a 100-day NFT? Did they ever unstake? All those sorts of questions, and we came up with like a fairly clear sort of picture that like our reward locking mechanisms and our LP pools offer attractive enough returns that like when people deposit, they like it, they stay. So like we're kind of trying to think of, okay, if that's the case, then like what kind of things could you do in order to attract more LP capital? Like is it just a marketing thing that we need to do, or is it potentially like a hurdle that we need to lower for like new LP capital to come into the system? And then I suppose to inform that a little bit more from like a wider lens without just looking specifically at Across, we also like performed a similar sort of analysis on other bridges in the space, comparing like how their base APYs and their funny money APYs look in comparison to ours, and like what the characteristics are of the various different LPs in those pools are. And there's some very interesting things you kind of find when you look into that. I won't give away all the sort of details, but what I would recommend you guys do, because it's kind of the culmination of the analysis we did for the team, is to check out Kevin's post on the forum. It's a proposal that's definitely worth a bit of time, thought, and consideration. It does summarize fairly nicely what we found out of the analysis we did. So like, it's not just like we came up with this idea out of nowhere. It's like really well thought through, reasoned, and we did a lot of debating to try and put this to pen to paper. So please go check it out, and please do kind of like chime in on what you think is what your opinions are on what we're proposing. I appreciate it.
I wonder if we should give some spoilers. I don't know. What do you think? I was actually going to take some time to talk about it. I see Kevin is here. Kev, if you want, you can come up on stage. Otherwise, we can hazard an attempt. But maybe we should spend a little bit of time conversing.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I won't name names of specific protocols, but like basically what we find when we look kind of more broadly is that we like see there's a lot of LPs where they're absolutely tiny. So what I would like characterize that as like probably during like the protocol's initial stages, they probably incentivized people to do different actions in the protocol to maybe earn their airdrop incentives. So like people might have chucked in $5-10, something small like that, in order to become like another like tick box in the eligibility criteria. Whereas when we look at like Across specifically, like that's not the case. So everybody in Across seems to have like a decent allocation in the LP pool, and it's like it's notably different in comparison to a lot of the other bridges that are currently out there. So it's like it's very much a continuation of like some people's metrics are kind of gamified. Like you can say you've got 500,000 or 1 million LPs, but when they're all only putting in $1 or $2, like does that really count? Another thing that we kind of noticed is like when you take into account the sort of like the multiplier awards that we had, like Across's returns are like very generous and actually like do stand head and shoulders above the rest. So like that's quite an attractive offering when you think about it, and like that's really reflected in the sheer amount of the LPs who've never unstaked. Like I think we're going over like 260 plus days now, and like a very high percentage. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It's bigger than you think, and it depends on the pool. But I think like in the like WETH pool, something like 70% of the LPs in there have like never unstaked. Like that's like unbelievable when you think about like all the stuff that's happened over the last 260 days. So like it really kind of shows that sort of stickiness, and that like we're offering a good product that people are happy to kind of stay in because it's paying them to stay in. So yeah, those are kind of some stats. Again, Kevin kind of calls out the specifics in that sort of post. So I highly recommend you to go take a read of it. If there's any sort of questions that you guys have, feel free to kind of reach out in the Rangers chat. We might be able to share some more sort of numbers if anybody in particular is really interested. But yeah, that's the kind of high level rundown of things.
So I have a question for you on that. Is there kind of like two categories of LP composition where it's like a pre-airdrop state and a post-airdrop state? Like other bridges that have a token already, does their LP composition look more like ours does, or are we kind of like special even amongst that group?
As far as I remember, like Hop being like the closest kind of like analog. Hop was like the closest analog to us.
Mhm.
I know that Stargate, there was a ton of absolutely tiny LPs, so that's probably people just trying to farm. I said I wasn't going to name names, and now you're making me name names.
Well,
The
I wasn't looking for specifics. I was
no,
just
no, no,
wondering.
no. I'm just trying to think through it. And then I think Synapse was the other one where they had like a bajillion really, really small LPs. So I'm not actually sure if Synapse has dropped a token before. I know Hop has. Stargate obviously did the SCG farming, but like didn't really do any airdrop. So I suppose the Layer Zero token is kind of like their new evolution of this. So yeah, I think there is a notable difference between protocols that already have a token and have done their like airdrop speculation phase in comparison to ones that haven't.
Yeah, cool. And when you say absolutely tiny, you mean like literally like $1 or $2?
Yeah, yeah.
And how what's like the total, like let's just use Stargate as an example because I'm curious. What like how much total liquidity is composed of like $1 to $2 people?
Well, the 90th percentile, or the value below which 90% of Stargate depositors lies was like $180. That means like 90% of the pool participants have less than $180 in there. And when you consider that like there's like hundreds of thousands of LPers, that kind of gives you an idea of the number of really small stakers.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Wow, that's interesting. It's kind of crazy how that can add up to such big liquidity pools, but
I
yeah.
think like the main thing is that like what that kind of tells you is that like in the remaining 10%, like it's a few huge whales, and like we know that like certain protocols did raise lots of money off particular funds, and so like it would make sense for them to deploy good chunks of that in the liquidity pools to like bolster their sort of protocol, especially in protocols that are less capitally efficient than across, because like you need that capital sitting there. Like it's almost a shame to have those resources sitting there underutilized, but like that's just the way it goes when you don't really build the bridge with efficiency in mind, capital efficiency in mind.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, and I think that that's cool how that ties into Kevin's forum post. So we've been thinking a lot about liquidity, both in terms of like our needed bridge liquidity, but also in terms of ACX liquidity. So it's just been very liquidity heavy in our focus lately, I think. So before we dive into ACX liquidity conversation with Alexander up here on stage, maybe it would be cool to talk about how Kevin's post ties into what you guys have been working on. And so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like the meat and potatoes of it is that Kevin is proposing we maybe change our emissions schedule for our bridge pools to reflect the likely behavior of LPs in the space right now and to encourage more liquidity in tokens that are heavily utilized within the bridge. And so
What I would say is make sure you read the whole proposal, because there's a piece in there that like if you might be initially afraid of what he's proposing, it's clarified fairly clearly that like current LPs will be looked after. So just like make sure you read it fully before you jump to any conclusions.
Well, and I think part of like having a conversation around it might help to break that down a little bit. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to come up here at all to chat about it, but I think one of the suggestions is to make the base emissions for the heavily utilized tokens a bit higher to start. Because we have that like stickiness of having people in here forever, but it can be kind of daunting or like turn new liquidity providers away if they think, oh, I have to make it to 100 days before it's worth it. So making it more rewarding up front would be a really good way to encourage additional liquidity to come join across. I know that was like one of the features of his proposal. I don't really know where I was going with that. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
It's a fairly good summary of things. Like if you want to think about it, it's like kind of lowering that hurdle for like getting new money in. So like people might kind of look at our current system and see, I gotta wait like 100 days before I can get that multiplier. Like, what's my opportunity cost? And like, could I be earning more money in another way? But like, if we actually front them more of the emissions they'll get earlier in the process, then like you've lowered that entry barrier, and like possibly someone could come along and say, hey, actually I might dive into that. You also get like a lot of people who are like purely looking like where they can park their money for like kind of short to medium term, and they'll use like specific protocols like DeFi Llama or like Nanoly to like try and scope out where those best yield opportunities are. And like if we change our upfront emissions to be higher, like we're going to stand out like a lot more in comparison to the likes of Stargate or anything like that. So like there'll be a noticeable difference in terms of what reward they can earn from the get go. And I think like that has the opportunity to bring new money into the system that like might have been hesitant to do that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, places that report on potential earnings don't often show that 3x multiplier value. They just show the base emissions. And so it's hard to get new people into the system when they don't know the hidden potential there. So yeah, exactly. Just juicing it a little bit more up front could pay dividends.
The funny thing is, and Paul has made this point before, like we report everything in terms of APY, which is like it's literally annualized. So like to annualize something means it has to be at least 365 days. So like should we technically like always be taking into account the like run up you get from, so like whatever the compounded bit you get from going from like 1 to 3x and then 3x for the remainder of the annualized period. So like arguably platforms are already not calculating this correctly. That might be a hill that like we're not gonna die on, and they're not gonna make the change. But at least this will like make it much easier if they're not going to make that change to accurately affect what people are going to be earning in terms of APY. Like this will solve the naive representation that they're putting forward at the moment. Like DeFi Llama is a good example of one that like they're just not taking into account in any way, shape, or form the 3x.
Yeah, totally. Well, cool. That's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. And thanks, Kevin, for putting that proposal up on forum for us. For any listeners out there, I will go ahead and make sure that we have an announcement leading to that forum post if you want to read more. He did put up a poll in it as well. So if you have an opinion that you want to weigh in on, that's your opportunity to do it before it goes to a snapshot vote. So yeah, that's it on bridge liquidity. So now I will hand it over to Clayton and Alexander to talk a bit more about our developments in ACX liquidity via our new partner in Velodrome.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Alexander.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm real excited for this particular development because I've been a fan of Velodrome for a while now. I was looking for good stablecoin yields way back when, and that's how I found my way there. And I've always been very pleased with both the yield farming experience, but also the UI and the support and just generally the whole thing that y'all are building. So I'm pretty excited for this collaboration and getting to see our token launched over there. Do you want to maybe give our community a little overview of Velodrome and why people should jam their liquidity in there?
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, if you're not familiar with us already, I'll give you kind of the big picture setup. So Velodrome is a decentralized exchange, and we are the largest decentralized exchange on Ethereum layer 2. And we are we range between the third and fifth highest reward generating protocol in all of DeFi behind Ethereum, Tron, and kind of in league with like the likes of Synthetics, PancakeSwap, and a few others. So how does Velodrome work? The idea behind Velodrome was basically to take kind of the best and most proven aspects of some of the great DeFi and exchange primitives that we saw in the last cycle. So UniV2, Curve, Convex, roll it all into a single streamlined design that basically allows traders to swap their tokens at low slippage, allows protocols to incentivize their liquidity in extremely efficient ways, and allows LPs, of course, to offer liquidity and earn rewards.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love it. I've participated on both sides, both as a Velo holder voting and then as someone earning yields. For somebody that's going to bridge ACX and ETH in order to participate in Across's pool, what kinds of what sort of things are going to impact their APY? Is there kind of obviously our emissions, the bribe amount would affect the APY, but does the APY expected to change on a weekly basis? Obviously, it would change based on the value of the Velo token.
Yeah. So remind me, this is your guys' first L2 deployment, right?
That's right. Yep.
Token. Okay. Yeah. So this is I think this is a super exciting moment, right? Obviously, Across is all about the ability to move seamlessly, right? Between these different chains, and this is the first time the token will be available on an Ethereum layer 2. And I mean, I guess I figure everyone's probably already using layer 2s to some degree, but I mean, if you aren't, I think the barriers to participation are just so much lower, right? Transactions are fast, cheap. It just makes it very easy to play around. So yeah, like how will this work? The cool thing is, right, is that basically what Across has done is submitted voting incentives to VE Velo voters. And this is an entirely permissionless process for a decentralized protocol to basically decide where do the protocol emissions go. So Across has deposited those incentives. Voters are now voting on which pools get emissions. And basically what you would expect is that Across will get a proportionate amount of emissions to the rewards deposited. So at Epoch Flip, basically all the votes then direct proportionally all the emissions to LPs. So very quickly here, that Across pool will start getting Velo emissions. Generally what we see is that means initially the APRs are very, very high, right, as LPs begin to move in. But basically what we would expect is as more people migrate their ACX, as more people deposit in that pool, the APR will come down to something that is more standard. Because of course people need to bridge, I think it might be reasonable to expect that APR is maybe a bit higher than what you'd see elsewhere. but will come in line, more closely with other similar tokens and pools. And then basically, as an LP, you'll be earning Velo tokens. And those Velo tokens, of course, you can, compound back into your liquidity pool. You can take them, lock them as VE Velo, and use them to vote for voting incentives and fees in the future. So you could, for instance, vote for the ACX pool, earn more ACX, and drop it into your LP just to grow it that way. So yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of different ways to participate.
Nice. And I just dropped a link to your Discord in the stage chat here in case people have questions. I'm certainly excited to participate, and I will migrate some liquidity over there before emissions turn on, which I think is fast approaching. What other kinds of opportunities, or let me ask you this: how would you advise new users of Velodrome to browse the opportunities? I guess maybe one thing I would highlight, for example, is that I noticed that Velodrome supports stable and volatile pools for a lot of different assets. And so if you are looking for a no and permanent loss way to provide liquidity, most of which would be stable coins, but not always. It can be between like a wrapped asset and an unwrapped one. So that's something that I would point out to people, is there's like different ways to LP. It's not only volatile assets. What other kinds of highlights would you point out for folks that are first-time users?
Yeah, I mean, the coolest thing I think is that Velodrome really is the liquidity hub of Optimism. We've got like 5 times the number of tokens as every other DEX combined, and 2.5 times the TVL of Curve and Uni and Balancer and Kyber combined. So really, when you open up the Velodrome page, we do think we have some of the best UX in the business. But if you open that up and you sort of look at all the different LPs available, you'll really be seeing every single project that is currently building on Optimism, and of course many projects that are building all across DeFi. And so, if you're looking to participate, LPing is usually one of the best ways to do it. And so it's a good way to get introduced to new and different projects that are building on layer 2 to LP, not only ACX, but potentially any other projects that look interesting to you. Yeah, Clayton, as you said, there's of course plenty of stable pools, volatile pools. There's, kind of very low APR, very safe kind of pools. There's high APR, more degen kind of pools. And I think it just, generally speaking, especially because again, the fees are so low, because the UX is so good, because everything's so fast, it just kind of makes a very fun playground. Like for me personally, when I was first learning DeFi, I spent a lot of my time on Phantom, just because that was an easy place to be able to try a whole bunch of things without spending a whole bunch of money to do it, versus an arm and a leg anytime I made any sort of transaction on Ethereum mainnet. So I think Optimism is kind of like that, where you've got a lot of different things that you can do to get involved: locking, voting, LPing, swapping. You've got a lot of projects that are new to you that you can get familiar with. And it just makes it kind of a fun experience for, degens and DeFi folks.
100%. Britt, Chase, happy to be interrupted if you all had questions to throw in as well. I guess maybe to get close to wrapping, how do I think about this? So how do we introduce across to the Velodrome community, or how do you sort of see that uptake take place over time? Like, for example, I'm assuming if a new token comes along and there's a really tempting APY, people might do a bit of diligence to investigate whether they want to participate. Is that kind of the pattern that you see, or is it normally like the existing community from the project kind of comes over there and LPs, or how do we kind of meld the communities together a bit there?
No, it's interesting because like there are some projects that offer voting incentives on Velodrome purely with the goal of marketing, right? Velodrome is one of the, it's definitely one of the largest and most active communities on Ethereum layer 2. And in that sort of like initial launch of a new token, because liquidity will be very low, you'll see a big, APR initially, right, on that ACX pool. And what that usually causes people to do is take a look at ACX, right, decide if it's an interesting protocol to them. And then I think what you end up seeing is a whole bunch of new LPs, right? People who aren't LPing on mainnet, people aren't maybe involved in the community otherwise, getting introduced to your project, beginning to participate. And, I think all of you know that it's usually just, you take that one step in. Like, I think we've seen a lot of projects where people just kind of like ape an LP, and then they like find the Discord, get to know the project, start using the product, and sort of like that. So I think you'll definitely see that. And likewise, I think what we'd like to see is like, as the community is going through that process, getting to know you basically, is to have all of you come over to our Discord, right, and get to know the community as well. We have a channel there called Eco Friends that is very much like devoted to the ability for like partner projects to talk about their project, shill their project, engage with the Velodrome community, and all of that sort of stuff.
Right on. Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, and I also appreciate the investing technique where you buy first and then go join the Discord and find out what the token does.
We've all been there.
Well, right on. It's certainly open to other questions from the audience, and would also invite you to share any other pivotal details you think I didn't ask for. But otherwise, we could let you off the hook, because I'm sure that you're constantly building and busy. Any questions?
JR had a question in the chat where he asked, maybe you show how to vote on Velo.
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you come over to our Discord, we've got an area for questions, and there are community members who have created like video tutorials and things like that. And the UI also does a good job, I think, trying to sort of walk you through it. So like definitely poke around in there as well. But yeah, if you want some more hands-on help or links to resources, definitely drop in there, and I'm sure some folks will be willing to help you out.
Will you post a link to your front end?
Yeah, of course.
The chat?
Yeah.
I could Google it, but I need to get a good link from you.
Yeah, probably better that way.
I thought of an interesting quest idea that I figured I might spitball while we're all here. Since we're trying to get two different kinds of liquidity, it would be interesting if there was a quest that combined the two. So since it sounds like people kind of stumble upon projects via Velodrome, it would be interesting if we had a quest where the purpose of it was to find new LPs on Velodrome, have them come stake other assets, like more utilized assets on a cross, and then be eligible for some like prize or something as a result of doing that. That might be an interesting way to get some more sticky LPs and new ACX holders at the same time. That'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about it.
Awesome. Any other questions from the audience for Alexander?
That's funny. I thought I was unmuted, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, Britt." And then that was funny. I was also saying that same thing. Appreciate you coming on, Alexander. GRIC is typing, but otherwise, is there anything else that you think we should have mentioned about Velodrome before we let you off the hook?
No, I mean, the only other thing I'd say is that we're also, I mean, less than a week away from deploying Aerodrome on base, and that is going to be the only Velodrome V2 fork that sort of exists out there. Both of them sort of building towards the optimistic superchain. And yeah, if you do lock any Velo in the next few days here, you will have the opportunity to get a portion of the Aerodrome airdrop as well. So feel free to grab more details around that in our Discord. But otherwise, just want to say we're super excited to have Across on board, and can't wait to see how the next few weeks go.
Well, there's some alpha for you. And I wasn't aware of that, so as a Velo holder, I'll have to go investigate. Really appreciate it, Alexander.
If you got some VE Velo, surprise coming your way, and yeah, check out the Aerodrome Twitter account. We've got details there, and I'll drop a link in because, of course, there are also 100 Twitter scams going on at any given moment. But more details on our Medium there on the airdrop and all of that stuff.
Right on. Thanks, Alexander. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Earlier, I realized that I missed Dixie because he had to leave to figure out his mic, and then he came back, and then I skipped him and went straight to Alexander. So let's wrap it up with an engineering update from Dixie.
And I hope my microphone works now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Very good. Very good. So, yeah, things are going well. Britt, how are you?
Doing good. It's a busy time for Across right now with all the campaign happenings, the liquidity happenings, just things moving left and right. And I think you might have some other extra good news to share as well to add to the chaos. So let's hear it.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. It is definitely busy, and it's a bit like there's so many things to deliver that that you can't really communicate everything that's going on effectively, which is an interesting challenge to have. Of course, we went live on zkSync. Was that last week? I think, yeah, a week ago. So that's been really good. There is another chain in the works, which is, I think, going to be exciting for people, and we've had some discussions with some of the integrators like Bungie and Jumper or Lefi to make sure that they're on board for when this new chain goes live. And then there's some capital efficiency improvements in the pipeline as well, which I think will give users like a better experience in times of really high demand. It basically will enable Across to react faster to these like really busy periods when, for instance, there's an airdrop on a chain or something like that. So there's plenty in the works at the moment, and yeah, we're looking forward to launching these new features so that people can see how they work and get the benefits of them.
Right on. I think the new chain is a poorly kept secret, but I don't know if we have a reveal planned, so I won't spoil that. But I did want to talk briefly about the capital efficiency improvements that we have planned and just unpack it a little bit, because there won't be a big hurrah about that. It's actually something that we've been talking about for a while. It's been in the works for a while. I think we kind of put that on hold a bit while we were building UBA, and then just recently wrapped that all up. But the thing that you're talking about, I think, is the whitelisted proposer, right?
Yeah, correct. That's it's basically a way of just ensuring that that we have greater certainty around the proposers for across bundles. At the moment, of course, Risk Labs runs a proposer and is kind of operating that whole system, but it is actually permissionless to propose. And what this will do is it'll just it'll protect against some unknown proposer coming along and trying to submit a bad proposal. But of course, everybody is still able to dispute. So any individual is able to dispute a bundle, and in that instance, the proposal goes to the optimistic oracle for a vote. But it basically just it limits the across attack surface, and then we can basically operate a little bit faster. We can issue refunds faster because we've basically fenced off from a very, very, very large pool of unknowns who might make a bad proposal. So that's kind of in 60 seconds. That's roughly how it works.
Yeah, and the whitelisted proposer is something. It's like a list you can add to, right? So we could add other entities to that list if somebody came along and wanted to also do proposals for whatever reason. We could
absolutely. It's
add to that, right?
Yeah, it's totally correct. So obviously, you don't want to have a single point of failure, and it's designed with that in mind. So you can basically modify this list of addresses that are approved to propose. Anyone is able to dispute, but it just limits the series of, or the set of individuals or entities that are able to propose. But that can be modified by governance. So
Yeah, super cool. And I think it is maybe worth mentioning, we haven't made a big deal about it in the past, but we have actually had attempted bad proposals previously. And the dispute process worked as it was meant to. So, of course, there was no hack, nothing bad happened. But it is just interesting to point out that this is like taking a step to eliminate a risk that has already been validated. Like, this is a valid risk, something worth being concerned about. So aside from just like the capital efficiency benefits, it is also a good step of protection for the protocol, I think, which is cool.
Yeah, I can actually add to that. So we had someone attempt to submit a bad proposal on Christmas Eve, actually, in 2022. And so that was obviously someone who's looking at this and thinking, oh, everyone's going to be with their family and not paying attention to what's happening on the blockchain. That's a great time to make an opportunistic attack. But of course, we're with our families, but we're also keeping an eye on what's going on, because of course in advance that someone might try to do this. So we had fantastic automatic alerting systems that triggered and responded automatically. But of course, we were there to monitor and to see what was happening. That resulted in a few disputes that were resolved. That the proposals from this unknown address were incorrect. It was interesting to kind of see it happen at a time where everyone is typically on holiday. So it's we have to be sharp, because people are out there to kind of try and steal funds out of bridges, and we know that. So we have to be really sharp on this.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So yeah, I think that's super cool. And one piece of pushback that we have seen occasionally within the community is that this feels like adding an additional layer of trust, or permission. And I think kind of one of our key messages around this infrastructure is that we don't feel like it's adding an extra layer of trust, because anybody can still dispute, right? So the layer of permission is only for the proposer, not for the dispute process.
Yeah, correct. It's definitely intended that anybody, and I mean it's designed and implemented so that anybody can dispute. But it just kind of having no permissions around the proposer is extremely open and everything. But in practice, we have only seen third-party proposals from people who are trying to attack the system. So we think that if someone is actually going to take the time to invest in running a proposer, then they actually have to be aligned with the protocol itself. And we would of course be kind of in dialogue with those people, and they would come and introduce themselves to the community. So I think that's the expectation for if and when other addresses come onto that proposal list.
And if I'm correct, there's really no there's really no financial gains to be had by being a proposer, right? It's just kind of like a service that we have been providing for the protocol at kind of like a break-even rate, right?
Yeah, correct. It's basically like Risk Labs is being this kind of benevolent sponsor of Across in this respect. So the proposer and the kind of surrounding functions, they're actually quite gas intensive. So if you really want to hold on to your ether, then like don't be a proposer, because it costs a lot, and you also you put a bond up each time, and that is also like at risk potentially if someone comes and disputes and finds that you've made an incorrect proposer. So you have to be acting in the best interest of the protocol in order to take on that role. Yeah, that's the, you need to take like a big picture perspective on Across as a system in order to want to be a proposer. So.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for providing that context. That's just like a super cool development that I've been really proud of our team for working on, and it's been sort of in the background, but it will be going live this week, I think. So nothing new for end users other than the capital efficiency side of it, which is that if we have shortened windows, it allows us to recycle our capital faster, which means in times of high utilization, rates don't go up as much. So yeah, the only thing end users might notice is more consistent fees during like high transaction times, right?
Yeah, so I think I'm actually really excited for the dev support team, because the dev support team, like when we have periods where our capital is stressed and we need to wait on refunds from our hub pool, this is the period where we start to see tickets appearing in the ticketing system, and people typically want to know, when can I expect my funds? And at the moment, because we're running on this 2-hour proposal and challenge cycle, the answer is typically like somewhere between 1 and 3 hours for a kind of a nominal case. By bringing in the proposal or like the challenge window, by reducing that somewhat, we can cycle the capital faster. And so what we'll be able to do in dev support is to give users like a better estimate. We'll be able to say, okay, instead of it being kind of 1 to 3 hours, it might be kind of 30 minutes to 1.5 hours. And I think that's something which users will really appreciate. And also, like most users, when they get these estimates, they kind of, when they initially hear there's going to be a delay, they go, "Oh, I hope it's not 7 days." And we say like, "Oh, it might be 1 to 3 hours." And like, "Oh, that's fine. That's totally fine." Like people are actually really happy to get the feedback. But I think we'll be excited to be able to give even shorter estimates and to allow people to kind of get their funds and to get moving faster. And I will say, like, again, this is only when Across gets really heavily used and we start seeing lots of volumes heading in a particular direction, or like a couple of really, really large transfers. It's only in that like extreme situation that this is actually going to kick in. But it does happen from time to time because it's the ecosystem is a little bit volatile. So yeah, it will just give a better experience for users and allow them to get their funds faster. So
Awesome. Very cool. Well, very exciting developments as always from engineering. Also very exciting that we are finally live on zkSync, and another chain coming soon, potentially next week, right?
I mean, I can't deny it'll be next week. It's actually more of a product decision. We've been doing a lot of testing and ensuring that everything is set up correctly. So things are looking pretty good from an engineering standpoint. So I think we actually defer to some high powers in terms of when that will go live.
Yeah. Ryan, we're looking at you out there in the audience. Yeah, maybe next week. I'm cautiously optimistic for a next week launch of another chain. So yeah, big round of applause for our engineering team. They've been working hard for a long time, and things are finally starting to fall in place quite quickly. So everybody, hold on to your britches. Here we go.
It's an exciting time to be in Across.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I realized that I forgot to do community updates as well at the beginning. So on the community side, we did mention Kevin's proposal already. So that is something to go check out on the forum, which we'll link to that in announcements if we have not already. Also on the community front, I think PVM and other community members have been working over in the governance chat channel to come up with round 2 of our community integration bounty that will probably also go up for discussion on forum sometime soon, I would imagine. PVM, feel free to correct me in chat if that's not correct. And then we also have been working tirelessly to come up with a set of 5 people to take on the responsibility of putting together a proposal for our first community-based committee. And so after quite a long process, we've narrowed down to our final 5. So congrats to those 5 individuals. If you're interested in contributing towards those efforts or seeing what the committee folks are going to be up to, you can check that out over in the committees channel. And I believe that covers most of our bases. As with all of our panels for this ZK Sync or zkSummer campaign, after each panel we'll have a game as well. And so we had 2 panels last week and 2 games from last week. So we'll have 2 more games happening later on this week. So stay tuned for that in the events announcement channel for your chance to participate on that. There's always a prize at the end of those games, so it's a chance to win some ACX. And today's community call game, normally we would spin a wheel, but that's been kind of on the fritz, or like not quite easy to set up. So I thought today we might try something different. So today for the community call giveaway, I have $25 in ACX to give away to like first, second, and third place over in our games channel. I think it's called Games, right? Yeah, the channel is called Games, and it's a game called Gartic, and Infinity will run that game for us immediately following this call. So if you want a chance to win some ACX from today, head on over there to play some games. Whew. All right, I'm tired of talking, Clayton. Your turn.
Yay! Yeah, great call. I think we should go play a game.
Cool. Awesome. Well, as always, thanks to everybody who joined us today. Thanks to everybody on the Across team who came up and shared some amazing updates. Thank you to everybody here for being a wonderful ranger, and I will catch you all over in games.
Yeah. I've tagged everyone over there. Bye-bye.
Bye.